Hello and welcome. Today we have the special pleasure of speaking to a man of God that no doubt you're all very aware of. He has been very kind to give us his time and to share with us, especially on issues of Nigeria and the current situation in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Pastor Ayo Oritsejafor. Pastor Ayo Oritsejafor, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Pastor Ayo, people like to know a little bit about your background, your journey. So who is Pastor Ayo Oritsejafor?
Who is Pastor Ayo Oritsejafor? That's an interesting question. I grew up like any other young man. But let me take you back a little bit. My mother was married to this gentleman called Joseph Oritsejafor. He had 2 wives. So they both wanted to have the first son. My mother was desperate. She went to a Baptist church and she prayed and asked God for a son and said, if you give me a son, I'll give him back to you. Wow. And that's how I was born. But the interesting thing was that my mother forgot the prayer. That happens, you know. She forgot all about the prayer. And so for the first 5 years of my life, I couldn't talk. And nothing was wrong. They tried the doctors checked and everything, nothing was wrong. And but eventually my mother said on my 5th birthday, I just began to speak. I didn't learn how to. I just started speaking normally like any child that was 5 years of age. And just like that. It was after that that she remembered her prayer. But I grew up and went my own way anyway. Honestly, I got into drugs. I got into anything that young people would get into. And I think mine was worse than most people. There was no hope for me, humanly speaking.
So how did you?
But eventually, I was invited to a crusade. Okay. The late Archbishop Benson Idahosa, so some people will remember that name, was preaching. And someone invited me, and I said, look, I'm not that kind, I'm not, but they made me go to that crusade. And for the first time, the word of God got to me. Okay. I gave my life to Christ, and that was where everything changed. I went to Bible college, and then I went on to the seminary, Baptist seminary. And then from there, I went to the U.S., spent some time in Bible college again in the U.S., came back, and this year will be about 43 years that I've been preaching the gospel. Wow. And God has been very good to me, and I'm grateful to God. Wow. Yes, that is a little bit about Ayo Oritsejafor.
You are the president of CAN. What is CAN, the Christian Association of Nigeria, please, sir?
Yeah, in fact, at the airport, the immigration officer asked me that same question. Okay. What is CAN? CAN, first of all, is actually the umbrella body for all Christians in Nigeria. Okay. It has 5 blocks. When we say blocks, we mean 5 different shades of Christianity. Interesting. So we have the Catholic block. Right. They are the only ones that have 1 block. Okay. We have what we call CCN, and that's the one that has the Anglicans, the Methodists, the Baptists, the Presbyterians and all that, and probably about 13 of them like that. And then you have the Tekan Ekwa. They are mostly in the northern part of the country. Okay. They are very strong in the northern part of the country. In fact, most of the people that have been affected by Boko Haram are from the Tekan Ekwa block. Okay. Yes, most of them. And then you have the CPFN, PFN block. And that's the block I belong to, the Pentecostals, Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, and then there is the Pentecostal Fellowship, there's a PC, Christian Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, and then CPFN and PFN. So we're all Pentecostals, but you know, somehow two different groups within one group. And then you have the OAIC, and that is the African Instituted Churches. That is churches that are purely African. The Aladura churches, you know, and all those kind of churches that were started by, you know, some Africans many years ago, and before the new move of the Pentecostal movement today. So that's about the 5 blocks of Can that makes up Can. So it's every shade of Christianity that is in Can. But the central thing for us is the teaching of Jesus Christ. And that is the center of our unity and collective identity. So we all identify with that fact, and we stick to that. And that's what makes us one, by the grace of God.
Some would say that Can has been rather too political in the past, and that you and other Christian leaders have spoken perhaps on matters outside of the sphere of religion. What would you say to those who make that claim?
Well, let me begin like this. Can is not political. Okay. We are not political. That is the truth. We are not. Right. Sometimes, one way or the other, people have misunderstood us. And it's possible we have done things or said things that we ought to have done better or said better that probably created room for such misunderstanding. We are not political. Right. However, having said that, it's important for me to also say that Can is not just something in the air. Can is made up of people. So our members are Nigerians. And every Nigerian must, one way or the other, vote. So if they are going to vote, automatically they must be involved in politics. Right. And so once in a while, there are issues that affect Christians and Nigerians generally that would prompt us to have to make collective statements and come out and speak on certain issues that affect all of us as Christians and most of the time as Nigerians generally. So sometimes it is possible someone may look at that and not understand where we're coming from, and they may say, oh, they are being political. No, we're not being political. We're only making sure that we protect our people. Because a Christian who does not vote has no right to complain about anybody who becomes anything or occupies any position in government at any level. So we come out once in a while, like I said, to make statements. So I think basically that's what it is. Not because we are political. We are not. But you can't run away from making political statements because of the members that are part of the organization. Okay. So that's what it is.
So you've spoken there a great deal about things that are of interest to Nigeria. But can you give us an example of some of the things that are of interest to Can, for instance?
For example, right now, Nigeria is in the midst of a democratic preparation for a democratic election. Definitely that will take place in the next few weeks. And so our members are actively involved. In fact, we emphasize to all our leaders to go to their churches, their denominations, to make sure that their members get what is now called the PVC card, which is the permanent voters card. Because without that, you cannot vote. Again, like I said earlier, gone are the days when Christians pray, and it's important to pray. We must pray. But they pray and do nothing else. Jesus did not say pray. He said watch and pray. So there is a place for action and there is a place for actual praying. And so we have to make sure that our members are actively and properly involved in the democratic process. Because if you are not involved, you have no right to complain about anything or anyone that is there. And because of what is now happening, we are encouraging our people to make sure they get the PVC cards. There are problems right now, if I may just come in, and we are doing our best to address those problems. I want to say that the idea of PVC cards is wonderful. It's, in fact, I will say it's an improvement on what we used to have in Nigeria. And that's what democracy is all about. You don't come to a situation of matured democracy overnight. It's a gradual process. And so it's growing, it's developing every day. And I think INEC has done well by coming up with this idea of PVC cards. It's a wonderful thing. The only challenge there is that there are still many people who don't have the PVC cards. Some because they are not interested in going to get the cards. So we are trying to do everything possible to get them to make sure they go to the different places where they registered to get the cards. It's important to get the cards. We're emphasizing that. If I may even tell you, in my church, next Sunday, they are supposed to show me their PVC cards, you know, in church, yes, and most pastors are doing that. So, so there are those who just don't want to go. They just don't feel, you know, why should I this? So we're trying to get them to understand that they must do that. But also there are many who still cannot, have not been able to receive their PVC cards because they are not available.
We've talked a great deal about Nigeria and, you know, and what is happening. But as a pastor, would you say that you've observed any tensions with religions against each other? Well,
I don't want to use the word against. That's a very strong word. The Christian faith, to start with, is never against anybody. Christianity is such that we are always for everybody. We are never against people. But the reality on ground is that there are many, many Christians and many other Nigerians as well who are afraid of what may happen before the elections, during the elections, or after the elections. Part of the fear comes from what happened at the end of the last election in 2011. A lot of people lost their lives. And based on that, there is this apprehension, there is fear. Quite a good number of Christians who live in the north, for example, from the south, have moved back to the south. And we are telling them, no, don't do that. Because, first of all, God will protect you. But secondly, we are also appealing and working with government and saying to government to do everything possible to protect people, to protect voters, so that they can go and vote safely and return safely to their homes. So we are also working on that. And another danger of moving from the north is that if you do that and you were registered in the north, you may not be able to vote when you get to where you are in the south, because there's a problem there already. So definitely there is that fear, but we're doing everything possible to calm people down and to make them understand that it's a growth process, and we will eventually get to the place where we won't have to be afraid of anything. But that fear will gradually go, and I'm sure people will vote, and this election will come and go by the grace of God.
So, as the president of CAN, what is your view of democracy in Nigeria?
When I started a while ago, I said that democracy is a process. Yes. It has to develop. Democracy is really about the people. Democracy is power that belongs to the people. Let's put it that way. But in a place like Nigeria, in a country like Nigeria that has been under military rule for such a long time, for probably 40 years or more, under military rule. So we're gradually putting off and taking off that mentality and learning to understand the mentality of democracy. In other words, the people generally don't really understand that democracy is about them. Democracy is for them. They think democracy is for the elite. Democracy is for those other people. And we are just here to watch and see how it goes. Whatever way it goes, whatever they like, they give us, whatever they want, they do for us. But they still don't understand that democracy gives you the right to elect people into positions, and automatically that gives you the right to make sure that they are accountable for whatever position they find themselves. They are accountable to you as the people that elected them. But it's a struggle. I think we will eventually get there, because the moment we can achieve that, you will discover that people will not sell their voters' cards, for example. People will not sell their votes. You won't be able to pay someone just to vote for someone, because he knows that that is his life. If he does that, he is selling out his life, or he's taking money in return for his life. And his life is worth more than any amount of money. But for some, they still don't get it yet, but that is happening gradually. So democracy is a growing process in Nigeria. And by the grace of God, from what I see, eventually it will take root, it will become strong, and Nigeria, in my own opinion, will become one of those nations that will be a great example for the world to look at and learn from.
I know that you made mention of INEC earlier in our conversation, but what would you say about the work that has been done by INEC so far?
First of all, let me give them credit for the work they've done. They have come a long way. Like I said, Nigeria is a country learning the process and the act of democracy. It's not something that happens overnight. It's a growing process. And so INEC has a huge responsibility to help encourage and show Nigerians how to go through this process of going to vote and doing whatever they need to do. So they've done a good job. Like I said as well, the idea of the PVC cards, for example, is fantastic.
So you support
I support it. Oh, yes, I do. I support it wholeheartedly, because it's an improvement on what we used to have. Okay. But like I said, again, the INEC still has some work to do. Okay. First of all, there is the huge work of voter education. People need to learn more and know more about what this whole process is about. The more people can learn, the more people will know, the better and easier it will be for even INEC, for their job to be done properly. So it's so very important. For example, they should be able to, I know the time is short, but they should be able to go on television, radio, and even what we have in our villages like town criers and all that. They can do some things in the native dialects, in different forms, to make sure people are educated enough to know what this is about, why they must participate, and how they should participate, what they should do on that day, what they shouldn't do on that day, and all these different things. So there's a lot of work in that area. And the more they do that, the easier it will be for people to understand why they should have a PVC card. And like I said earlier, there are those who just don't care about picking their PVC cards because they just don't think, look, well, does my vote really count? It doesn't really matter and all that. So they need to be educated to let them know that, yes, your vote counts. It's very important. But also there are many who still cannot get their cards. And they keep going. Some have complained, they've gone 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And we are saying to people, as CAN, look, if you have attempted so many times to get your card and you've not been able to, let us know about it so that we can find ways to collectively put some of these names together, different issues together, and approach INEC to let them know some areas of difficulties that they need to work on. Because definitely, like I said, there are many, many things that need to be done in educating people about these things. So INEC still has a lot of work to do.
We've talked a great deal about INEC, Nigeria, and you know what INEC has been doing to date. Do you have any further advice that you would give to INEC as to what they could do that perhaps would improve the situation?
Well, again, like I said, there is the voter education, which is number one on my list. I think, to me, that is the major thing that they must work on. Yes. Number two, if the voter education is done right, most Nigerians will go and get their PVC cards. But then, again, it's like repeating myself, but I think it's important. INEC must provide these PVC cards. People must be able to go there and get the cards. Then there is the card readers that they are also providing that works specifically with the cards. Now, if you have a wrong card, it's not going to respond to anybody else's card except your own card and all that. There are all kinds of things about it. Now, they have tested some a few days ago, and it worked in most places, but there were many that had problems. You see, so they need to improve on some of those things. They need to, those are the technical, when you are talking of the technology now, as far as technology is concerned, it's made by man. It can fail. So while they are working on it, they must also have a plan B. I will strongly advise INEC to have a plan B. Just in case some of these things they've put in place don't work at the last moment. If they start seeing so many people not being able to use the card readers, the card readers are not reading the cards. So what else can be done so that people are not disenfranchised and that? So they need to put a plan B on ground. It needs to be there ready. So any polling booth where they have such problems, they can now go to plan B. So I think these are some very important things I would like to say to INEC. If they follow some of these things, it will work wonderfully for them and for us as a nation.
Again, we've spoken considerably about INEC, about Nigeria. However, what would you say was, the role of government in voters' education?
First of all, INEC is a government agency. So whatever INEC does, in a sense, it's government doing it. But then you have the Ministry of Information that I believe are already doing something, but they can do much more as well. Some of the things I mentioned earlier, they can break down some of the informations into the local dialects. They can go as far as the grassroots to the point where in our villages, there were ways people were communicating. One of those things was the town crier, if you know anything about that. There are ways, so communication has always been there. They can also get the message out through those town criers in the different communities, in the different dialects. And somehow it will help even the people in the rural areas, in the different places in the villages, so that they can connect, hook up, and participate in the process. So they are doing something, but they can do a lot more. And these are some of the things I think that it's mostly in the area of voter education. I think that is very vital, very important. The time is short, but a lot can be done. And I believe that they have an opportunity to work on it very quickly, because the extension of the time, I think, in my own opinion, was a great blessing. And a great blessing to everybody and for everybody.
Given the time that we have now, is it still realistic to be able to get all of these things that you've talked about done in time for the 28th?
I think it is. Okay. I think it is. It just depends on how serious people are, those in charge, those who are supposed to do it. If they are serious, they can get it across there. If they work with it, they go out there, they talk to the people. There are so many things that can be done at the same time. Not doing this first or doing that, because we don't have the time. Yeah. So about 3, 4, 5 different things can be done at the same time. And I believe that they can reach as many people as possible. I know it can be done.
You're a man of God who some say is close to government. Can you tell us a little bit more about the role of government in a democratic election?
Close to government. I don't know if I'm that close to government. But in my position as president of CAN, naturally, government will want to talk with the leader of Christians and the leader of Muslims. Yes. And so once in a while, they would ask that we come for meetings. So we do go for such meetings. So if you look at it from that angle, well, probably you may not be wrong if you say I'm close to government. But I would say that government definitely has a lot to do. You see, in the very developed nations, what government does cannot be as much as what government will do in developing nations. In developing nations, most things as at now are in the hands of government. Government they have a lot of work to do. And the democracy cannot be deepened and made stronger if government does not allow it. And in my own opinion, and I must be honest with you about this, I'm a pastor and a man of God. I think government, this present administration, has done a lot in that area. For example, today in Nigeria, like never before, the average Nigerian can wake up and abuse the president and say anything they like. They can just, anything. It has never happened. Many people that ran out of Nigeria on exile are all back to Nigeria saying anything they want. Because democracy is a system that gives freedom, freedom of worship, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of all these different. See, democracy is mostly about freedom. Yeah. Freedom to choose who you want to govern you, freedom for everything. So I think this government, to a large extent, has done a lot in that area. Okay. That is not to say they can't do more. There are other things they can do. The time is short, but they can do a lot more to help get our people more involved in the democratic process.
We're seeing at the moment government asking people to go out to vote. Why should the government be asking people to go out to vote when voting is actually everybody's democratic right? Surely they should just exercise it.
That's interesting, because without the people, you really don't have a government. A government is not a legitimate government if they are not properly elected by the people. There are other nations like Bangladesh and others that have been able to increase their voting population and all that, and number of people that have come out to vote because the government was able to go out there and encourage them. And I think this government is doing the same, and the governments at all levels are trying their best to do the same to get our people to go out there to vote. It's important for government to do it so that they can gain legitimacy from the process that will get the people to go out there to vote. When they vote, when the people vote, the government is legitimate.
Thank you. Now I'm just going to take you back slightly to the church again. I know we spoke about the church earlier. However, as a faith leader, what would you say is your role in the election and also in the democratic process?
Well, first of all, in most churches, we have activities every day.
Okay.
Every day. You are either having a women's meeting, or a men's meeting, or a youth meeting, or a midweek prayer meeting, or you have a Bible study, or you have a full-blown service, and you have the big service, which is every Sunday, where everyone comes to. So you have all your members there, at least most of them, every Sunday. So that is an incredible occasion for any pastor called by God to encourage his members and tell them, go and vote. Get your PVC card. Make sure you do what has to be done. I just told you now that next to this coming Sunday, I told my church members, I've done it before, but I want to, it's like an update. I'm updating things. You don't just do it once. So last Sunday I informed them, I said, next Sunday when you're coming, come with your PVC card. You know, and some said, I had some saying, we've tried, they didn't give it. I said, try again. I give you this whole week, go there and try. If you don't get it, when you come on Sunday, put your name down. Give me all the informations of where you went to and you couldn't get it. So Sunday is an incredible day, but we have activities every day of the week. So every pastor must do this. Your members will thank you later, because they will discover that you have helped them to participate in one of the most important processes that any human being should be proud of, and that is electing people into position. Right from the grassroots, beginning with the local government to the state government and then to the federal government, because sometimes we all concentrate on the federal government. What about the state governments? What about the local governments? Shouldn't they also be accountable? They should be accountable. Our people must begin to hold them accountable. They must tell them, let us know what you are doing and how you are doing what you are doing. Because what you say you are doing is not affecting my life.
Yeah.
So if the man at the local level is not affecting your life, I think it's a huge thing when you now tell the person who is really at the federal level, you are not affecting my life. The first person you need to hold responsible to affect your life should be the man at the very, very local level. You see these people every day. You meet with them, you walk around. You know they are not doing anything. So, I mean, if I tell you some stories, it will blow your mind.
Please do.
I don't know if I want to get into that. But I will tell you that it is time for Nigerians to start holding local people, local or locally elected government officials accountable for their position, for what they do with money, what they do with their position, what they do with whatever comes to them. I think this is very, very important for us at this time.
We are seeing a lot of propaganda at the moment from both sides. What is your take on that?
The democratic process in Nigeria is growing, and growth sometimes can be very painful. So I think we are also going through the pains of growth. So a lot of this propaganda will be there. We may not be able to stop it. I will encourage people, let us dwell on issues. Let's look at the issues. What are the issues? Has this man performed? You know, to me, it's important that anybody who wants to run for office, we should be able to look at what he did yesterday and how he did it yesterday. Now, to be able to judge what he is saying he will do tomorrow. So I want to know what you did yesterday. There are some who say, don't judge me by what I did before. Just judge me by what I'm saying now. I'm a good man right now, and I will do this and do all that. That's wonderful, but it's important for us to also look at what people have done in the past. What have they done? Those in government now, what have they done? Those who were in government many years ago, what did they do? What have they said? What have they been saying? What did they say yesterday? And how far have they come with what they said yesterday as compared to where they are today and where we are as a nation today? It's important to look at all this, you know. And if you do that, you'll be able to sift between propaganda and reality, because these things are all kind of muddled up. But you can separate them because it's right there. Nigerians are intelligent people. Yes. I'm sure as time goes on, even within this short time, we'll be able to see. We will know what propaganda is. So propaganda is one thing. The realities are another thing. So Nigerians must look and read in between the lines to pick out what is right and what is wrong.
Just going back slightly, you've talked about how we should hold government accountable at local level. Does that mean we should not hold government accountable at federal level?
Oh, never. Why? It's important. Like I said, at all levels of governance, the federal, the state, and the local level. Now, what I was trying to say is the situation we have in Nigeria is that people, it's almost like nobody really, again, it's the mentality. It is the understanding. The understanding most Nigerians have is the federal government, the federal government, the federal government. But in the Constitution, there are responsibilities of the federal government, there are responsibilities of state governments, and there are responsibilities of local governments. Now, Nigerians need to know the different responsibilities, because if they don't know, they will keep putting it all on one area and one aspect of governance, while the other people will just be there doing whatever they like. That's why I said, now, look, someone once said, every politics is local. All politics is local. And that's the truth, because we all come from somewhere. We live somewhere. When you want to vote, you don't go to Abuja to vote. You may be voting someone into a position in Abuja, but you do your voting where I come from, Warri, you do it in Warri, which is local. So there are people also that will be voted into position right there in Warri as well. So I should be able to hold those ones responsible to say, all right, you are here with me in Warri, what are you doing with what is given to you? While the federal government, we know the responsibilities, the things they are supposed to do, we also hold them responsible. Doesn't matter what level of governance.
Pastor Ayo, it's been great talking with you today. Do you have a last word for our viewers?
What I will say to us as Nigerians mostly, and there may be others who are not Nigerians, but mostly to Nigerians, is to say, don't give up on Nigeria. Believe in Nigeria. There is only one Nigeria. We don't have two. We can only have this one. But Nigeria cannot be Nigeria without Nigerians. We are the ones that can make Nigeria great. God wants to do it, but he works through people. Let us have hope. Let us have faith. Let us believe that with time, this nation will become the nation of our dreams. But we must work together. Whether you are a Muslim or you are a Christian, whether you believe in anything or you don't believe in anything, we must work together because we are all Nigerians first. We must agree that we are Nigerians and we want a great Nigeria. And we can do it. We can do it. We can make it happen. And so please reach out. Let's play down on our differences. I am not saying that we don't have differences, but even with the differences, there are things we all agree on. And one of those things is that we want a great Nigeria. And we will all get it because that's our heart desire. May God give it to us. May God bless Nigeria. Thank you.
Well, you've heard from Pastor Ayo. It is entirely up to you to go out there and ensure that you pick up your PVC and cast your vote. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care.
Radio.